Hey guys, Emily Muchanti here, and I am bringing you the last of the 5-part video series covering supporting our paraeducators in reading intervention. And today, the be-all, end-all purpose of reading, and that is the Mac Daddy comprehension. Now, before we get into the details, I would love it if you would subscribe and like this video. When you subscribe, it actually tells me and YouTube that maybe I should keep making some videos because somebody out there actually wants to listen. So subscribe, like, share this video, and so that we can bring some more people into this conversation. All right, so our last in our video series. And what are we doing here? Well, we really have to start with the premise that we do what we know until we know better. Human nature, right? So in this case, we are going to start by building knowledge. Any kind of improvement in any part of our lives begins with knowledge. We have to learn some new things. Then what we're going to focus on is instruction. What does good instruction look like? And there is actually a method to really strong instruction. Finally, once we've got those two foundations laid, we are going to look at strategies, building up our educator toolkits so that we can be responsive teachers to our students, whether we are working in small group instruction, in an RSP position, or anything that we have to be really flying by the seat of our pants. So this series in particular was really focusing on the reading intervention and the pillars, because here's the reality. We overcomplicate everything in education. I truly believe this. We overcomplicate everything. So rather than overcomplicating it, let's focus on what is going to move the marker for our kids. And let's get really good at those things. So in this case, there are 5 pillars that we're going to focus on. And if you haven't caught any of these previous videos, they are there. Make sure you subscribe so you can go check out the channel and find them. We covered phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, academic vocabulary, and today, the Mac Daddy comprehension. So let's look at comprehension. First of all, this is where we put all of the pieces together and actually make meaning. So what is comprehension? Well, that's it in its simplest form. It is understanding what is read. Can a student understand what they've read? And something interesting, it requires an interaction between the reader and the text. In other words, we have to, you guessed it, think about what we are reading. Students, especially struggling readers, don't know the importance of this. We have to think about what we are reading. And then finally, all earlier skills and processes that we've talked about can affect a student's comprehension. So it's very important that we use quality assessment data to guide our instruction here. Because if a student isn't comprehending because they had an issue with fluency or an issue with vocabulary, then teaching them comprehension strategies isn't going to fix the comprehension issue. And really what we want to get our students to be able to do is we want them to learn to monitor for meaning. And monitoring requires that paying attention to and thinking about what the author is saying in a text. So how does this fit into the overall reading process that we've looked at in each video with Scarborough's Row? First of all, language comprehension. You cannot understand written word if you can't understand oral language. It all starts with being able to understand oral language. And then all of these skills get tied together. And toward the end, we are able to pull in the fluency, pull in the word recognition and the vocabulary, and understand and make meaning of what we have read. So what does a typical reader with strong comprehension skills look like? And these are your kids. They're going to read a variety of texts across a variety of genres. They're going to enjoy reading. They will find pleasure in it, honestly, because it's rather simple to them and they understand it. And these kids are going to be able to monitor their understanding as they read. In other words, when they get to the end of the page and they go, wait, what just happened? They actually know to go back and try to reread and find that out. Our struggling readers, on the other hand, have difficulty engaging with the text for a couple of reasons. One, they may not have strategies to use. They may not know that good readers, as they are reading, need to visualize what is happening in the story, just like it were a movie in their mind. They may not understand that, I should be questioning what I'm reading about, or I should be making connections with my own prior knowledge. These are all very important things that struggling readers don't understand. They may have difficulty summarizing the main idea or finding key details from the text. They could struggle with literal comprehension, which is finding information directly in the text, and it could actually be inferential comprehension, where they're struggling with how to make those connections and draw inferences. So why do we focus on comprehension? Well, I've said it, I think 3 times. It is the most important reason why we read. In fact, it's the only reason. Why do we read? Why do you pick up a magazine and read? Why do you read the newspaper article? Why did you read that blog post? Because you're looking to gain meaning in something. And knowledge of the world around us is going to be broadened as we read. And by doing that, it makes us better human beings. We are able to understand people for their differences and their similarities. And this just makes us overall better humans. And then if all other reading skills are solid, the student may actually need explicit instruction in comprehension skills. If we can help a student improve their comprehension, we can keep them on a trajectory that leads them to overall academic success, self-esteem improvements, all these things. Otherwise, what we have is that dreaded Matthew effect, where the rich get richer, the good readers keep reading, they get better at it, they draw more information, and our poor readers read less and less, and the gap widens. We don't want that to happen. Now, here's a pro tip, and I kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier, but it's important when we are looking at students who are struggling with comprehension that we don't assume that all of the earlier literacy skills are mastered. We have to use our assessment data to know, are all of those other processes in place? And if they are, then we know that that student probably needs explicit instruction in comprehension strategies. But if a student is struggling with something else, say fluency or vocabulary or phonics, for example, then we know we have to go back there because they are getting hung up, maybe not at the comprehension level, but still at that word reading level, and it's going to affect their comprehension. So what can we do about it? And we know, again, with knowledge comes power, so we have to do something. The first thing is there are some simple things that we can do in our small group reading in our classrooms as a para. If you're working with a student on an IEP, the first thing I would always suggest is we ask the student to reread. They say, I don't know the answer. I don't understand that question. I always say, read it out loud to me, because I need them to read it again. Sometimes we just aren't paying attention to what we've read. And honestly, attention issues can get in the way of comprehension in a huge, huge way. So rereading is the first easy go-to. And then we want to use some strategies. And you can see with this graphic here that kids need to learn to summarize and ask questions and connect and make predictions and visualize and make inferences. These skills need to be taught explicitly to some of our most struggling kids. I had a student, true story, 6th grade student, beautiful reader, most fluent girl you've ever read, expression, just amazing. And at the end of the read, I said, tell me what you read about. And she looked at me dumbfounded, like, I don't know. And I said, well, did you watch it like a movie in your mind? And she said, no, like I was a crazy person. She said, I'm just trying to figure out the words. You want me to think about what I'm reading? And I realized, oh my gosh, these kids really are taking every ounce of brain energy to decode or be fluent. There's nothing left to focus on the meaning. So that's why we go back and work on those other literacy skills. Another thing that's important to help students with comprehension is writing. Writing is a huge connection to comprehension. It is making our thinking visible. And when kids write about what they've read, they are going to process that information, put it on paper, be able to come back to it. It's a fantastic tool, whether it's journal writing, whether it's some sort of a response log, a double entry journal. These are really great tools to get our students to think about what they are reading. And then annotation. Have your students mark up the text. If you've got something that they can't actually write on, you can use Post-it notes. Post-it notes are a great strategy. It works. They love to use Post-it notes, especially when they're young. But annotation is a wonderful way to get our students to actually interact with the text. They can underline important things. They can circle words that they are unfamiliar with. They can make notes, draw images, things like this. And then finally, when you've got all this information, sometimes our students struggle with organizing it into some sort of format that is digestible. And so graphic organizers are a great way to organize information as they read. They can fill something out and come back to it later. So what should you use? Well, there's so much out there. And I really try to get to what is simple. Let's get to some simple, easy solutions that we can do now. One tool that I love is Scholastic News. Now, Scholastic has a number of different magazines that are written to the readability of every grade level out there. Scholastic News happens to be one of the elementary versions. It goes kindergarten through 6th grade. And then you have the Scope magazines, and those are more middle school and high school. Wonderful tools, great for expository text, so interactive and engaging. Highly recommend them and totally affordable. Now, guided reading is a typical strategy that is used mostly in the primary age levels. And I want to caution you a little bit with guided reading, because sometimes guided reading, when we are guiding students and walking them through and watching their mannerisms and behaviors when they're reading, is a really great tool. But guided reading is often used synonymously with leveled reading. And that's where we get a little bit sticky. So when we're using guided reading strategies, they really should be things that are not leading our students to guess. We never want our students to guess by using things like pictures or getting your mouth ready and then just making a guess at a word. That reinforces bad habits. So we don't want to use that. But small group instruction, guiding the reading, especially if it's decodable readers at the early levels, is a great way to help watch the comprehension behaviors of your students. Audiobooks are wonderful supports for our students at all levels. Now, what this helps us to do is we actually can work on language comprehension. We can take away the decoding drain on some of our kids so that we can still build comprehension skills without the bogging down of decoding for some of our most struggling readers. If you have a student who is dyslexic, an audiobook is a wonderful support for them. Another thing is encouraging wide reading at all grade levels. We want to give our students varieties of text to read, a variety of genre, so that they are exposed to many, many different things and they might find something they actually really enjoy. So what do we do now? Now, if you are a para, you are usually under the guidance of a lead teacher. So I always encourage you, this is not a conversation to have alone. These are not decisions to make by yourself. When we're looking at reading intervention and we're looking at teams that use and support paraprofessionals, these decisions have to be made as a team. So if you're looking to improve your comprehension supports for your students, you need to do a few things as a team. And the first thing is, what curriculum do you have? Don't go out and spend a bunch of money on fancy programs that claim to do all of the be all end all, because those are big red flags to me. Look at what you have, okay? So the first thing, what do you have and do you know how to use it? Too often we are given programs, there's money at the end of the year, so our schools or our districts buy programs, we never receive training, we don't know what to do, we pick and choose, and it ends up being something that really we've kind of missed the mark here. So we want to look at what you have and do you know how to use it? And if you don't, seek out training if it's a good product. Finally, above all else, no matter what you are doing, you have to incorporate progress monitoring in your instruction, within your interventions in particular, or your RSP programs especially, to see if what you are doing is working. Any instruction you deliver is useless if you don't watch to see if it works. If it works, great, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, you have to change something. Again, don't overcomplicate this. It's a fairly simple process that can be very, very quickly done, and you will be amazed at the data that you can collect. Here is just an example of some of that progress monitoring. I always suggest progress monitoring should be done about every 2 to 3 weeks. So if you are seeing a student or a group of students in particular that are specifically struggling with comprehension, you know that all of those other early literacy skills have been mastered and that now we are really focusing on comprehension strategies. You have to find a tool where you can measure if they are actually applying those strategies that you have been teaching. Very, very important. And your administration, your psychs, they're going to love the data. We've got some pretty exciting things. And like I said before, go to theparapros.com and pick up your free video series guide. If you really want to do some work with your teams of intervention, go to the website, pick up the free guide. It is going to help you to see maybe where some holes are in your intervention and maybe what some strengths that you have and really dial it in. Because again, don't overcomplicate this. Choose what needs fixing and fix it. Focus what is going to move your students to become better readers. And if you are a teacher with your wonderful paraprofessionals, you need to provide some training for them. You're definitely going to want to come to theparapros.com. And if you are a para and feeling like a lone soldier, come to our group. We have a Facebook group, The Parapros, and I would love to have you join us there so that you can be a part of this conversation that takes all of our people and makes them efficient so that we can help our students. Thanks so much for your time, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video series. Please leave a comment. It's kind of like, you're talking to the abyss sometimes. I need to know I've got real people out there. And as always, much love to you, and bye for now.